And when I did this keynote on stage in person with 2,000 people in the audience, I stood there and was like, wait, this is what I've been missing, is being on stage and being with the people afterwards, to hug them and to talk to them and to learn from them and know that I see them. I've spoken in prisons with this message. So if you want to talk about going into a tough crowd, right? And by the end of it,
they're captive audience at least.
Dad joke. Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show, where I am joined yet again by the ever kind, amazing, brilliant, and devilishly good looking. That's the new one I've added.
What a joke. Is that a running joke?
I haven't even said it with a straight face yet.
I can't.
Marcus Murphy is
thanks.
here
Thank
and
you.
has made a generous introduction to a gentleman who really believes that you matter, and more so believes that as an organization, every person in that organization matters. Matthew, welcome to the Jasmine Star Show. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to finally meet Marcus Murphy in person.
Yeah.
You are easy on the eyes, buddy.
Stop. Please, everyone stop. I'm never bringing guests on your show ever again. Because
Tomorrow, he's like, Jasmine, when can we do it again?
when can we do the second round of these?
I'm not feeling so good about myself these days.
Yeah, I laugh because this is the first time that we've met. It's been 2.5 years, COVID friendship.
Yep.
And you were a lot taller than I thought, which I wanted to just go ahead and make sure everyone knows that, you watch these videos and you meet people in real life, and Matt's like a collegiate athlete. he was you played a water polo at UCLA. Yeah. So I'm not that at all. But it is amazing to meet you in person. Like, what an amazing opportunity to come in and do this together. It's awesome.
Okay, so I want to start. How did you meet? So I should actually probably say is as this idea came, this is the first time I'm having a co-host on the Jasmine Star Show, and I wanted to reach out and said, who are the interesting people in your life? Like, how can we serve a lot of people on this podcast? And he put together a short list, and there was like a little asterisk by your name. And so I want to know, how did you guys meet? Where did this begin? And I'm very, very excited for this conversation.
Can I say one thing about you, just so I can tee you up? I love cutting you off, by the way. This is really great. I love stealing.
You need to work on your podcast.
I'm literally the worst. It's like, you want to be a late night TV show host? This is
I
bad.
can take off.
Okay, no. The one thing I'll say about you that I loved and went way beyond, because we had a professional relationship and then it went to a personal one. And one of the things that we talked about was this idea of this internal kind of, we called it Noah. We find these characters that are kind of similar people that we need. Like Noah's an ark, right? So Noah was this person who like really cared about people. He was trying to get him on the boat. He was trying to, like, the flood's coming. But then also was like, doors are shut. And I'm going, right? And also had enough, like, he was also like that powerful rage, but not like a destructive rage, to be able to freaking build a huge boat and like get people on it and just totally not listen and cut out all the noise and go do it. And immediately when I met Matt, that's who I thought of. I was like, you're Noah, dude. You are Noah, and you don't know it yet.
You don't know it.
You don't know it.
You
guys are the worst. Are you parents? What is going on? No.
Which was interesting, because actually, and my wife and I, we didn't have children, but if we did have a son, I wanted to name my son Noah.
No.
Yeah.
Noah.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys, I did it
No
again.
way.
No way.
Yeah.
I did it again.
Goodness.
No, but Marcus and I met on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I received an email of a LinkedIn learning video about how to maximize and build your brand on LinkedIn. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is something I need work with. And so I watched this video, which I didn't have the rights to see, and I watched this gentleman do an amazing training. And part of the training, though, he was ripping apart people's bad posts.
He's really good at ripping people.
He's
ripped my LinkedIn account.
Don't bring it up.
He ripped apart my LinkedIn account. So I was the before and
Nobody
after.
go look at that. That was an episode.
Don't give
a long
him
time
credit.
ago.
He doesn't need credit. And so I'm like, I'm going to reach out to this guy, but I was so nervous because I've seen what he's done and shared of other people's stuff. And I reached out to him, and he responded right away. And you were living in London.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we created this, relationship.
Okay, so there is something that you're saying, this is something I need to work on, as in your personal brand.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Marcus had said to me before the interview was like, he was kind of interested, beguiled, and kind of slack-jawed that somebody with your CV and your resume and your experience is going to him. I mean,
No, I get it.
The guy kind of sort of knows what he's doing a little, but it's a little bit like, how do I serve somebody who is clearly, like, you know what you're doing. So why all of a sudden this like turn in, I want to build my personal brand?
I think, and I'm going to sort of talk more about it, but for the past 15 years, I've been running a nonprofit organization that I started called Every Monday Matters. And our mission is to create a world where everyone knows how much and why they matter. And so we have different verticals. We have our corporate programming, our education programming, now our senior living programming. But I always found myself just kind of tucking in behind that brand. So I was the founder, I was the author, but at the end of the day, I'd do a keynote for a big company, and I'd walk off that stage and go right back to just being Matt from Every Monday Matters. And so I never put myself out there personally as a brand. I never had a personal website before. My wife, in as many loving ways as she possibly could, and maybe sometimes not as loving, is like, listen, dude, what are you doing? People love you, and you change people's lives. Like, why are you holding that back from the world? Like, this is your skill, this is your gift, and pursue it. And so during COVID, when I think everyone started asking a lot of questions, I started pursuing these things, and I have learned many things from you and some of your friends, Amy, and some of those folks. And I tried to figure out how is it I'm going to launch a personal brand. And originally I was going to go down the course kind of work, create online courses and do all that.
Yep.
And then as I was building that out, then all of a sudden I realized I was asked to do a keynote. And when I did this keynote on stage in person with 2,000 people in the audience, I stood there and was like, wait, this is what I've been missing for all of these years of COVID, is being on stage and being with the people afterwards to hug them and to talk to them and to learn from them and know that I see them. And so I kind of diverted from the coursework, and now I'm moving more so into just full-time keynoting and getting on the road and being out there and spreading the message.
Okay, so there's two paths, Marcus.
Yeah.
I want you to choose. Like, this is like a Nancy Drew.
I know.
I was gonna say the Hardy Boys, but
No.
I feel like Nancy Drew is a little bit of a fit. Yeah, so choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
So path number one,
Yes.
we talk about the importance of mattering, and we talk about it from a team building perspective.
Yep.
And then the second path, and we're gonna get to both. It's just which one first.
Yeah.
Is what on Matthew's LinkedIn like really made you say, why is this guy reaching out to me? Right.
Yeah.
So let's go there, because we're talking about him keynoting. But
Yeah. So there's one I would love to just kind of camp out, and the fact that, yeah, when you reached out to me, one, you did it in a different way than everybody else, because there was a lot of intentionality to it. It wasn't about you, it was about me. And I think that stands with me, because how many people like that reach out to us or talk or anything, they are literally usually going, I, me, anything about them, but people don't care about you.
Give me a sample LinkedIn message.
Okay.
You know, like, this is classic.
Okay. So this is
Is this a good sample or a bad sample?
Is it a bad sample?
Well,
or a good sample?
actually, we can generally, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I can generally say that, like, a classic example of a LinkedIn message is terrible.
Yeah, that's bad.
You never get, like, you hardly get good ones, which
No.
is why I want to know, like, what made his good. But let's start with the classic.
Okay, so the bad ones are usually going, hi, fill in the blank, because it's an automated message.
Right. Yes.
Hi, name.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. Do you want to 3x your business? What would it be like if I could get you 45 leads a day? It's like, great.
Imagine the flow.
Imagine the flow.
Right.
Imagine it. Or how about this one? This is probably my favorite one, is just going like, I know that you probably are a busy individual that has a job and things, and we know that you're valuable to your network. And it's just like, okay. And it gets into the back of it being like, buy my stuff. It's like basically, no matter how any of that is, it's the generic part of it.
I know you're busy, but I still want you to take time to read all this.
Yeah.
Right.
I know
Read this
you're busy,
very
but
generic message. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where you cut through the noise for me, is that there was somebody who clearly watched one of my trainings or did something, they looked at everything and were like, I can't just message this guy. It has to be the way that I set it up, and it's how I taught it. So that actually stood out to me a lot too. Is like, you literally learned and took it and applied it.
Okay, but let's be real. Spill the tea. You went over to his profile. I
did.
know that's what you did.
I did, it was okay.
Okay.
You're being very kind.
It was below average, but I will say this. I will say this in a loving way, is that everybody, when I go there and I saw what Matt's resume was, because look, this guy had a presence online that looked like he wasn't the person that I saw him to be once I did some digging. And that's something, like, if you're listening to this podcast, people do find you, and the doormat to like who you are is maybe seems kind of superficial on social media, but it is the doormat. Like if you want people to come inside and see all these amazing things and these books that you wrote, it's like, man, you could just turn that up a little bit and everybody's going to get the message so much clearer. And so I knew that when I saw Matt and I looked at his message and I read his book and I was sitting there going like, whoa, this guy needs to be known by so many people.
Okay, so before we get into the thesis that
Yeah.
you matter and I matter and we matter, what's the story that got you here? Like what is the out of the box, this is my origin story that led me to this moment?
Yeah, so I worked in the music industry. I went to UCLA undergrad and then grad school, got my MBA, and I had a couple job offers from some big companies. And my best friend, who was a lead singer of a band at the time, had just signed with Sony Records, and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin produced their album. And they were looking for a band manager. And so they brought me over to their apartment on a Monday night, and we partaked in some things, and they got me really primed. And they said, let's ask the question, will you be our manager? And so we pulled out a Domino's pizza napkin because we had ordered Domino's, and we wrote, Matt Emerzian is now the manager of Elephant Ride. I turned down my 2 job offers with these companies that were nice 6-figure incomes, and I just got my MBA from a top 10 business school and became a band manager in LA. And that led to working with broke bands on the Strip. Like that Strip was my office. And then eventually I learned about a gentleman named Robert Kardashian.
Okay.
And we all know that name at this point.
Yes.
At that point, I just knew him from the O.J. Simpson trial, so I thought he was just an attorney. But then I learned he was actually a big music man. And even during the O.J. trial, he wasn't working as an attorney on that case. He was just friends with O.J., another story completely. But Robert had a music marketing company, and I wanted to build a co-management thing with him where I could bring him artists from the street. He could then take them to the labels because he had all the contracts with all the labels, and we would create this farm system. He didn't like any of the bands I brought him, unfortunately. They were on those CDs, you know, those silver things we used to have.
I'm too young. I don't know what that is.
Never heard of those. But anyways, he liked me, and so he offered me a job as a senior vice president of his music marketing company. And so now I'm working for Robert Kardashian. Kim, Chloe, Courtney all ran the front office, so we can all enjoy how that was going. And all their friends were coming in every day. And then I was working on projects for the biggest artists in the world. So U2, Coldplay, Avril Lavigne, Tim McGraw, Usher, you know, you name it. We were working on those projects. And so my life became all about the slippery slope of the music industry and the fame and the fortune and the red carpets and the Grammys and all of these things. And everything that I thought mattered, I ended up learning that none of it did. And on a Monday morning, I woke up and had a massive panic attack, which turned into chronic anxiety disorder and depression. And so I had days where I thought about going out here on the 73 toll road and getting my car up to 100 miles an hour and just yanking the wheel because I couldn't stop this thing that was happening inside of my body, and I completely lost control of my life. And so fortunately, I was introduced to an amazing therapist. I call her my expensive friend. And I think we all should have expensive friends.
Yeah.
I had a couple. And I paid for
I've got an expensive friend.
Yeah.
They're
awesome. And anyways, we just had to go on this journey of healing and learn what things went wrong and why does my life matter. And that ended up fast forwarding to me writing a book in 2007 called Every Monday Matters, trying to help people besides myself find their own purpose and meaning to their lives. And in doing so, changing ourselves, but also changing the world around us. And then that book became the inspiration to become a nonprofit organization that we now have been running for 15 years. And that's why it brings me here
How many
today.
people were affected by the nonprofit globally?
Well, I mean, our education program alone reaches 3 million students nationwide. And we've had that program now for 12 years.
Could you imagine if you didn't wake up that day and feel all those things when you look at a landscape of impact like that?
Yeah, you know, my brother told me early on, he's like, one day you're going to be grateful for you experiencing this. But it was like 6 months into my breakdown, and I thought, hell no. Like, there's nothing good about this.
Yeah.
And now people ask me, like, would you change anything? And my answer is no. I wouldn't change the thing.
Can we, so I hail from a family of storytellers, and it's probably because my dad didn't learn how to read until he was about 25. So he was learning how to read as he was teaching his twin daughters. Okay. And so we communicate differently. So when you say, I want to push my car over 100 on the 73, and for people who are unfamiliar, the 73 runs along from where you were living, Aliso Viejo, through Newport Beach, and then we'll kind of like spit into bigger freeways like the 405. And at this time, you think about those things. Where are you in terms of your marriage? What does an average Monday look like? And how is it different than another Monday?
Wow. Well, my life is so different today than what it was back then. I mean, yes, I'm happily married to an amazing woman. And
Were you single then? Were you married?
I was single then. Yeah. I mean, I'm not proud to say this, but if I were to define success back then, it was make as much money as I could, have a house in the Hollywood Hills, have nice things, stay single, and basically be a jerk, and just have fun and enjoy life. And so there's nothing wrong with being successful in all of those things, but it's not. I don't believe that's why we matter. And I think that our life, we're not here just to be successful. We're here for something bigger than that as well, I believe. And so I had to shift actually what I thought mattered. And also what mattered to me was these different, now I still achieved success, right? And still, these things still happen. I still wrote 4 books and all these things have happened, but I don't attach my mattering to those things. I attach it to, our framework is I matter, you matter, we matter. And so I believe as humans, anytime that we're living in a space where we're aware of taking care of ourselves and our own well-being and the good, the bad, the ugly of all that, taking care of each other and our relationships and which ones are healthy, which ones are life-giving, life-sucking, do we have boundaries? You know, anxiety disorder is a nickname for the nice person's disease. So we say yes to everyone but ourselves, right? And then understanding that we're a part of something even bigger. There's this bigger we, and it's not about, I matter, but it's not about me, which is a really interesting thing to say. And actually, I wanted this You Matter book to be called You Matter, but it's not about you. But the publisher said that no one would buy it because it goes in the self-help section. And if you're telling the reader it's not about them, then why do they want to buy your book?
That's that's like a marketing takeaway right now.
Right.
Okay, so again, and I just want to go back and push on the story. So there is this moment.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody who's listening is having a moment that is entirely different and yet similar. Maybe they're not pushing their car to 100, but they know something is wildly mismatched. What was the first step you took?
Well, the first step I took was, obviously I went to the doctors and then my parents.
We're talking about your primary care physician?
Yeah. I drove myself to the doctor, which you shouldn't do I thought I was having a heart attack. Okay. That was the
panic attack.
And I hear that from a lot of people, their first panic attack, they think it's a heart attack.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I was having. Funny part of my story is I was actually an ambulance driver between college and undergrad.
How many lifetimes have you had, Matthew?
So many lifetimes,
But the funny thing is, I only worked for one day because it was the scariest freaking thing I've ever done in my life that I quit. But I figured I had the skill set to drive an ambulance, so I drove myself to my primary care doctor. And they did all these tests, and he came in and said, listen, your heart's fine. You're just having a very severe panic attack. And I'd never heard of that. I didn't know what they were. I never heard of Xanax, all these things before. It was all very new to me, and I didn't know what to do. I went home, and they said, you should feel better in a couple of days, but that's not what happened for me. It just accelerated.
Now, in your career at this point in time, what is your job?
I'm thick in the music industry.
So still.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And no one, and this is like, one of the things they talk about is our sickness is our secret, or our secret is our sickness.
Yes.
But I worked in an industry where I couldn't let people know what I was going through. And I started doing, my therapist made me go out every Saturday to do something that wasn't about me. And here I am out in LA picking up litter, and I have a baseball cap on, I have sunglasses on, I have rubber gloves and bags in my belt loop, because I had like this reputation to protect, right? But picking up litter kind of became this sanctuary for me. And every Saturday I'd be by myself in the city, just doing these things that weren't about me. And that weekly dose of doing things not about myself, of feeding homeless people, reading to elderly, planting a tree, picking up litter, that weekly dose of doing things that are not about me is actually what helped me find me again.
But that's so, wait. So I hope I did things that weren't about me, which helped me.
Find me.
Find me. That is, like, it's crazy because we're in a very prescriptive culture.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people will want to come in and be like, hey, read this book, do this thing, listen to this podcast, whatever. You're giving somebody a prescription right now that I literally have never heard. I haven't heard like, you know what? Things are falling apart. I want you to go out and pick up trash. But that it's not about the trash, but tell us about what you felt when you were doing those things.
Well, yeah, I struggle, and I mentioned like the self-help section thing. Like I struggle with the fact that my books are in the self-help section because I don't believe in self-help as its own thing by itself. Because
where do you think your book belongs? In what section?
I think the self-help section should be renamed. Because we're social creatures. We live in social dynamics. If I lived on my own private island of one, and all I did was focus on being a better person, well, fine. What else am I going to study and focus on? But we live in relationship to each other. So who I am and how I feel about myself and how I show up is also impacted by the two of you as well, right?
Yeah.
In Africa, it's called Ubuntu, right? Like I am because of you, or we are because of we. And so we all help shape and form each other. And I believe that and it might not be popular to say this, but we've become too much of our own navel gazers. Like it's like so focused on my needs all the time.
Yeah.
And we just need to look up and also see, how can I serve their needs? And how can we serve the bigger needs? And I believe that if I had 100 people in my life that were focused on helping Matt serve his needs, and I had 100 people in my life that I helped them serve their needs, we'll get a lot further than all of us just focusing on ourselves all the time.
Is there a weird trust thing there, though? Because I always feel like maybe the inhibiting factor of feeling like I'm going to just give is that people aren't going to take care of you. Because like in what you just did there, you painted this big, beautiful picture that if we all cared about other people, then we are going to be taken care of, right?
And then can I drill down a
please.
little bit more on that? Like, so a lot of the listeners, not all, a lot of them are their own business owners or a C-suite leadership. And so along the same lines, if as a CEO, if you approach it and saying, I'm going to take care of you, and then you still in the back of your mind, like, I'm going to take care of you. Like, who's taking care of me? Like, are they doing it because of a paycheck? Like, how are we reprogramming in like a place of what Marcus says is trust?
Well, it takes a lot of trust. I mean, relationships take trust, right? And vulnerability, absolutely. And just showing up in our authentic sense. But the other thing too is in the You Matter book, there's a Venn diagram in there. And when the drawing of all this started for me, the visual, I'm a visual learner. Originally, the inner circle was the I matter. And that's this internal stuff. The circle next to it, bigger one, was the You Matter, the people around me, my relationships. And then the biggest one was the We Matter. And when that book went to print, I called New York, hold the press. I've been doing this drawing for 10 years and I realize I have it wrong. Instead, the I Matter circle, the You Matter circle, and the We Matter circle should all be the same size and they all overlap. And in the middle there, it's where I believe that we are at our best as human beings. So I'm not saying just go be there for everybody else and for the, at the risk of your own well-being.
Right.
Like we still have to be aware of our own needs.
Yeah.
But what I think is we focus so much on the I in our culture, and not enough on the you and not enough on the we. And if we opened up those things better, I think we'd find a better balance to life. And in that way, self-transformation also becomes social transformation. Like we change the world as we change ourselves, and I help you transform you, and it also helps me transform me. And, as influential people, even as a keynote speaker, I'm there to bring the message to the audience, you matter. You're seen, you're heard, you're loved. Now, I hit rock bottom, and maybe you're not hitting rock bottom, back to your point. Maybe you're somewhere just, I'm a little numb, or life's not great, or I got a good look at rock bottom, but I didn't quite hit it, right? But anywhere in the audience, I know that there's people who are just trying to figure out what is this meaning of life, like what's life all about. So I'm coming in there to bring them this message. But every time I do it, I walk away feeling so fulfilled, because then after I'm done, Matt, can I hug you? Can I share my story with you? And all of a sudden they fill me up, like, oh my God, like I'm here for a reason and I'm in my purpose. And they just gave me that gift back, right? And all of a sudden this room of 1,000 people all of a sudden felt like a tiny table. We're all sitting around interconnected. And so it's interesting how the I, the you, and the we play. And that's what I try to bring to light. So for any CEO out there, yes, you have to take care of yourself. There's 100%, right? But we also have to understand the needs of our people. And in the corporate space, they call it culture. So if you looked at the we matter from a culture perspective, how do we take care of that? Which is the culture thing is interesting because I'll go work with the company, and our team will work with the company, and they'll talk about, so we'll say, our culture here really sucks. And my first question is, well, what are you doing about that? Because people will remove themselves from it. So they'll step out, say, see this culture over here? It sucks, but I'm over here. But they remove themselves from it. But really, if you work at a company, you're right smack dab in the middle of that culture. And so it's like, be the change we wish to see in the world, right? Create the culture that you want to have.
Yeah.
And we all play a role in that. We can't just point to it as the bad thing over there that I have no responsibility of trying to help or do anything about.
You sit in some of the, like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in some of the rooms that you have access to. Like some of the brands that we love, the biggest brands on the planet, Matt is working with their teams, like inside the boardroom with people that make decisions that affect thousands upon thousands upon thousands of global employees, right?
Yeah.
And people. What I want to know is, I feel like I can get real gray about it and be like, tell it, like spill the tea on like what is bad. But I really want to know who's doing it well and why are they doing it well? And like, how are they actually implementing some of this? And what is somebody who is on the other side of implementing?
Sure.
What does that world look like? What does that company look like?
Yeah, well, I feel today, and I say this, sadly but thankfully, the topics of mental health and well-being, mattering, are becoming much more popular. Now,
Thankfully,
I think we just saw a Verizon ad. Something matters. Bras matter. Mazda, driving matter. Everything matters all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, COVID exposed our tender underbellies and what maybe used to be kind of soft stuff that we didn't really, like, how's this going to help my bottom line, right? This kind of stuff. I think people are realizing that, no, we have to, if our people are not well, we're not going to achieve our goals. It's just period. We're not going to do it. And there's enough research out there to show that. So for me, we have the stories that, are so amazing. And a lot of it starts, I believe, with a leader who actually values people and truly values people. There were days back in the beginning of this journey for me where I was just fully pushing a rope. Like I was trying to get a CEO to value their people. And it was a constant struggle. And I got to the point where I was just not going to work with an organization if they didn't really believe this from the top. And because otherwise it wasn't even fun to work with these organizations. And I'm not going to say who those brands were.
What does it rhyme with?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Tall Mart.
Exactly.
Okay.
Today, it's very different. Today, the people are much more open. They want to have these conversations. They're looking for answers. They understand their people are struggling. The workplace with the hybrid versus, virtual versus in the office. There's a lot of things that have mixed us up lately. And we're seeing it, statistically, we're seeing it too with mental health, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, violent crimes. The
increase of that?
Yeah, the increase of all that in our culture today. And I wouldn't say that as a humanity, we're necessarily having our best look right this moment. And so we're looking to find answers. And mattering to me is the start of all of it.
Okay, so can I be a little bit skeptical? So there's an organization where maybe it's been an abdication. Look at that culture. It sucks. And then if I was an employee and I had a mid-level manager, senior level manager, even if I had a CEO who up until that point hadn't exhibited a true caring, but deep in his or her heart they are and they want to shift it, all of a sudden I'm a skeptic and I go into like the cafeteria and it's like, you matter. And you're like, oh God. So from what I understand, they bring you in as a keynote speaker. And then are you working with management? Are you working with teams? Like how do you change a whole culture? So, and then that's just the start of the question, because for somebody who's not for somebody who doesn't have 100 or 1,000 person team, we're talking about this burgeoning business owner with a team of 10.
Yeah.
What is the system? How can somebody come back and practical steps of saying, I want to really convince people that they matter and show them that they do?
Right. So the first thing typically starts with this guy walking in and with the message of you matter. And yes, there are skeptics out there. And I have been I've spoken in prisons with this message. So if you want to talk about going into a tough crowd, right? And by the end of it,
they're captive audience at least.
Dad joke. The dad joke. That was good.
That's just not right, dude.
It's all good. Yeah, you guys keep going.
And by the end of it, they were hugging and they were crying. And they had completely changed their energy around, everyone here just wants to get us down. Like no one cares hey guys, listen, we can make this what we want it to be. So let's support each other. Let's love each other. Let's learn together. And it's the transformation is wild. But you're right. You can't, I asked the question from people, ultimately, there's this thing that happens at the end where they get on stage and they say, my name is, and I matter because, and they make this statement in front of 2,000 people. And they do this live there. I can't have someone in the first minute of my keynote be like, hey, come up here right now. I want you to finish this sentence. My name is I matter because, and go.
But you did that in your TED Talk.
I know, but that's after an hour or 15 minutes in case of me.
Shout out TED Talk, by the way.
I know. That was a subtle flex. He's hyping you up by turning like, but wait.
But wait, what's that thing you did with red letters? There were 3 of them. Go. No, your TED Talk was great because you were different, because they actually didn't want you to do what you did in your TED Talk. Right?
Yeah, they didn't want me to bring anyone on stage, and I said that I wouldn't do it.
And then you did.
And then you did it.
Oh yeah. And it's
I
still
said I wouldn't do the TED Talk if I couldn't bring people on stage.
Oh, okay.
So I brought, yeah. So, anyways, you can't just come in there like, hey, you matter, okay, I'm out, right? Because
Right.
it takes time to get there with this. But ultimately, whether it's a team of 10 or whether it's a massive company of 60,000 employees, and we've worked with all of them, there is a practical, strategic way of doing this. Yep. And it starts maybe with a keynote, so there's context of what this is going to be, what's this journey we're going to take. It starts with understanding their pain points, whether that's diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, whether that's turnover, retention, whether that's culture, leadership. And so we have a team. I look at us as like a mattering agency, if you will, that we come in and we understand their needs first, and then we make a tactical plan to then solve this. Not overnight. It's over, we work with companies for years, 7, 8 years at a time.
Wow.
Because the bright shining object is not going to change culture. I even joke that a lot of keynote speakers think that they're going to actually cause change in 1 hour. I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Speak for yourself.
You've offended Marcus.
I literally
He's here to change your life.
I wait till that guy's life changes and I don't leave
3
the stage.
days after you're gone, they don't even know your name anymore.
Yeah, true. Very good. All right, guys, it's been really fun. This has been good.
But you're still easy on the eyes.
Okay, again, I'm leaving. I'm out.
No, but real change takes time, right?
Yes.
And it's like it's a slow drip thing. So you can't go from a company that clearly didn't really care about the people to, now they care about us, like overnight, without it being authentic and genuine.
It's true.
So are they seeing those practical things implemented? Because if I'm sitting there, I'm an employee, and they come up and I'm like, okay, another one, like this is going to be another thing. But then I start seeing things happen, and it's like, actually, like, what are those things that people would start to experience to see that slow turn, right?
Yeah. So every Monday, this is the name actually turned out to be brilliant. Although back to your thing about how are my Mondays suck.
Yeah.
Like, my Mondays are so busy, it's crazy. And I don't get national holidays anymore because they all fall on Mondays, right? So I'm always working. But every Monday, it gives us a reason to exist inside of an organization.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah, because as an entrepreneur, your Mondays could be Sundays or could be Saturdays, or they don't hit quite the same. But I think as an employee or your employees, Monday is that start of the new week.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just get people to not just reclaim their Mondays, because everyone hates Mondays. Kind of, it's like we're not like a Monday makeover kind of thing, but ultimately to come in to give us a reason to exist with communications. But whether it's digital communications that we're doing throughout the organization, whether that's trainings we're doing with managers, poor middle managers are getting beat up right now, right, and helping them navigate what they're navigating, or whether it's activations on campuses, doing engagements of real life, inspiration walls and things. It's a full battery of techniques that we have to actually start to get this to change. And ultimately, what happens is they don't even need us after a while, because they start to own it themselves. And all of a sudden people start to notice, wow, like I do feel different. Or I'll get an email from a wife saying, I don't know what you're doing down at my husband's company, but he's actually become a much better husband in the past 6 months.
Whoa.
Like, we didn't solicit that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been moments, and my wife and I, we were in DC, rewind a little bit, when there was a presidential election with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and Trump won, and we were in DC at the time, and DC was a very eerie place that day because we were there on election day and the day after. We drove out to the middle of nowhere, Virginia. I was a keynote speaker for a big bank that was having a retreat. And afterwards, a woman walked up to me. She said, Matt, can I speak to you for a second? I said, sure. So we walked out in the hallway. And she said, I want you to know that I think God brought you here today because my plan was to take my life tomorrow. And she took me out to the parking lot where she had all of the duct tape and tubing in her car to run her exhaust back into the cab of her car to commit suicide.
I would sit down on the ground and cry. I don't even know what I would do.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
But does that come with the space because of what you're talking about, the subject matter, who you are?
Yeah.
You get a lot more people who are vulnerably sharing those types of things with you, right?
I think so. When when I share my story of like hitting rock bottom and wanting to take my life on the 73 toll road. When you share that in the public in front of people, it does create a safe space for people to come to you and say, hey, listen, I've been struggling too. And so I've gotten to see a very personal, perspective of how people, even in some of the most successful companies in the world, are really doing. And that is my thing for leaders. Like, I will tell you, your people need healing. They need this. They need this work. And whether you choose to work with me and Every Monday Matters or someone else, we need to start understanding our people's needs more and being there for them, because there's a lot of pain out there that needs healing. And we can heal it is the exciting part, right? We can make an impact. And that woman I told you about, I brought the CEO in. I knew he was a very caring man, empathetic leader. We had a tough conversation right there in the moment. And they put her on a special kind of care program there within the company. And she started thriving. And she did amazing. And she saved her life, right? And they always say, if you just impact one person, right? And I've got to have a lot of those moments.
So one of the things that I would say for somebody who's listening, obviously, Every Monday Matters is a great place for a small business owner who might have a small team and is maybe not at the point of investing in having a matters agency right. come to them. One thing that we implemented was just asking people, how are you doing? But then also coming to the table and sharing something that it doesn't have to be vulnerable for vulnerable sake. It could just be real. But what I have noticed is when I meet with a team member and I'm saying, on the outside, things look great, but I'm going to tell you, this one thing, it's really hurting right now. That the minute that you give that space for that, they feel empowered to do the same. So is there something else, maybe along those same lines, that's just like one action item that they might be able to take with their small team?
Of course, yeah. So my You Matter book is more of a personal story, my personal story and journey, and other stories that along the way. The Every Monday Matters books are actually super prescriptive. So what it does is it gives you 13 themes. So Monday gets kind, Monday gets compassionate, Monday gets grateful. And then for each of those monthly themes, if you will, there's 4 Mondays. And so if it's Monday gets kind, the first Monday might be use your words. And so from an I Matter perspective, using your words, how do you talk to yourself? What's your self-talk? Are you self-loving or you beat yourself up? Most of us aren't great about that, right? Use your words in a You Matter perspective is, do you compliment people? Do you lift people up? Are you sarcastic? Are you short? Do you put people down? We Matter, kind of how do we use our words to create a culture here at work where we all kind of feel honored and respected? So the book is a recipe, really, to follow 13 monthly themes and 4 Mondays for each of those to then roll. And there's engagement ideas in there to then roll them out.
Put them right into the calendar is the only way to get it done. Like if something's not on my calendar, like, hey, shut it down. I have shut it down in my calendar. That's so sad, by the way. But I feel like that gives everybody the exact, that's the roadmap, right? That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Along these same lines, can I go back to the story? At what point do you decide to pivot away, start something new, find a greater purpose, and then where does your wife fit into this? I find it pretty intriguing because at the time of this recording, she is here with you.
Did you she didn't meet you when you're at your bottom? Okay, so you were.
She got you on your humps, baby.
You were thriving.
In a good
your hair was super curly. Yeah, great beach day.
Had nothing to do with that guy.
How did you guys meet?
Well, interesting story. So we there was a choir from Uganda coming to America to tour, and they were orphan children from Uganda, and they were looking for people to chaperone for a week. And so because I was music industry, I loved this whole idea, and I love children, and so I chaperoned 2 of the boys. They were 5 and 7 years old, and their uncle, they called uncle, who was their adult chaperone. They lived with me for a week. And then they had this concert at the end of the week on Sunday. It was at a church. And so I was obviously there because I was with these kids all week. And my wife, Patty, she happened to come as an audience member. And so after the concert was over, they had these merchandise tables set up. And they were just, people swarmed the tables because they just wanted to buy everything.
Oh, they want to support everything.
Yeah. These kids were incredible. And so there's a woman standing in front of me, and I'm tall, like you said, 6'3", and so I'm able to look over people. And I said, hey, do you have anything here for men? I asked the volunteers who were selling the merch. And they said, no, it's only for women. and this voice says, well, just buy something and give it to your mom or your girlfriend or something. And I'm like, okay, my mom would never wear this stuff, and I don't have a girlfriend. And so I saw this person put this necklace she was holding back down on the merch table, and then she walked away.
Oh, God, this is so smooth.
So
Matthew, this is so smooth.
Tell me you got that.
This is,
Oh, yeah.
I'm literally covered in chills. Stop.
Yeah, I'm a lot smarter than I look. Okay?
I mean, brother.
Right. So I grab this thing and I buy it. And now I have to go looking for the woman who was wearing an olive green sweater because I never saw her face. And I see
Very serendipity.
olive green
This is a
sweater.
movie. If
I
I've ever
love
heard
rom-coms.
I
It's
go,
great.
know.
I go tap on her shoulder. Were you the one that said this? She's like, that was me. I said, Earl, I bought this and I know I'm going to give it to you. So I bought it for you.
But wait a minute.
And that's how it happened.
Wait,
Then I was like,
Matthew.
What?
You tap her on the shoulder,
Yeah.
and she turns around with these piercing blue eyes. And are you like, whoa?
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, I was
she's
like,
cute.
smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you're like, lucky
That was
me.
Yeah.
Right. So you're feeling like a little lightning
Like,
bolt.
I bought the right thing for the right girl.
I bought a bracelet for the right. I mean,
Yeah.
dang. Okay.
Yeah. And the funny part is at that time in my life, I was like 40 pounds heavier. So I was like a little bit chub. And you've seen her, right? And so,
You had a great personality.
You had a face for radio.
she's very charitable herself. So anyway, I see her face. I'm like, wow. So we go over and we sit down and start talking. And fast forward 2 weeks, I see her friend, and she said, hey, I asked about Patty, my wife, and she said, oh, wait, she hit you up on Facebook, but you never responded. And
Because you're bad at social.
because I can't say that in front of her.
Yeah.
Suck at social. And so I looked at it, and sure enough, she had written me. Little did I realize that she had actually thought there was something there, but then mourned it because she didn't hear back from me for 2 weeks.
It just increased the longing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It was like it all part of your plan.
But
to
here's
get.
the best part of the whole thing. The whole time I was talking to her at that concert when I met her first, she was sitting on her ring because she was engaged to another man.
This movie gets better.
It does.
Marcus?
Yeah.
And then she traded up.
Can I ask the last thing? First of all, everybody should meet Patty. I think that's a really good. You won. But here's my question about that. Do you guys engage in this together? How this is not easy work. And like that woman who talked to you in the parking lot, the schedule flying all over the place and doing keynotes and working and stuff. I'm assuming that you need a great partner in crime for that and somebody who really inspires you and keeps you grounded there. So how important is that relationship in that way?
Oh my God, it's everything. I mean, first of all, she's my biggest cheerleader without a doubt. And she's pushed me in ways to do things that I never thought I would do. My third book, the personal book, You Matter, I wrote because of her. It had been 10 years since I'd written my first book. And then I wrote another, Everybody Matters in that book. And she really pushed me just to go there and be vulnerable. At the same time, what's interesting is that she's an actor. And I don't know how actors do what they do. Like I can act to save my life. And she doesn't know how I do what I do because she can never go on the stage in front of a bunch of people and do a keynote for an hour.
Yeah.
And which is a huge fear for a lot of people, right? And so we honor and respect each other for those unique skills that we have. And she says she's an introvert, and I'm clearly not an introvert. And so we have these, like when we got married, the guy said, I've never married two more opposite people in my life. Just so you know.
So good luck.
So good luck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but what I've seen with her is that she knows how much this work matters to me. She knows the impact it has on people because she's witnessed it more than anybody. And she just gets in there and loves it and supports it. And she gets in the mix. I was talking about the whole prison thing. I mean, she was there with me inside this prison. And as soon as I was done, I look over and she's here talking with all these inmates and hugging them and her heart open. She's very sensitive, big-hearted, and she just gets in the mix and just. Sometimes I have to convince her it's time to leave. She'll just keep going.
So important to have that, by the way.
I know we're
amazing.
getting close on time, and I want to really be respectful of it. But one thing that really stuck out to me is not just the corporate level work or the individual work that you do. You've also extended a curriculum for school age children.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that? Like,
Absolutely.
what is that program? For people who just Marcus?
Yeah. I was just saying, just on that as well, you do the senior one, which actually is brand new too. So the kids and the
seniors.
elderly. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of get you at the beginning of life, at the end of life, and right in the middle.
Yeah. They have a lot of similarities, those two.
College, I guess, right now. But we have a K through 12 curriculum, and it falls in the camp of social and emotional learning. So SEL. Again, SEL has been around for a long time. We've been doing it for a long time. But up until COVID, it was mostly about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. All of a sudden now it's like, no more STEM. We need SEL. So it's all about this mental well-being of our youth. And so right now we have a program that serves 3 million students nationwide. We're in all 50 states and a couple other countries. It's completely free for schools to have. We don't charge a penny for it. And we get funding sources to help support that. So if there's any donors out there listening.
What a plug. It's like, you need that tax write-off. Let's go.
Absolutely. And then, so that's been just super successful with what we're doing with the youth across the country. And one of the things, again, that we learned through COVID was not just the youth need this, but also the educators themselves. Our teachers were dying on the vines, right? They are just so burned out and walking away from a career that was their calling. And so now how can we serve the educators themselves more and also the families? Because the families had to deal with all this change as well. So that's a super robust program. And because of that program and the corporate program, actually what happened is I got asked to keynote the California Assisted Living Association conference. And so they asked me if I would go visit a couple of these assisted living communities before I did so. And I did that. And what I learned when I was talking to these men and women in these communities, what they say is no different than what the men and women would say in prison. Is that I'm just here to die. Nobody cares about me anymore. I'm not a part of this world anymore. I'm lonely. I'm alone. And for different circumstances, they all felt the same. And for me personally, I don't think that's how anyone should end their lives. And what I also saw was what they call the killer bees, which is like ball toss and bingo and balloons, which I don't think senior people should just be put out.
I've never heard that, dude.
Yeah, like let's just don't put them in a corner.
I'm laughing and crying at the same time.
Same here.
Yeah, they're not 3-year-olds, okay? Like let's actually respect and honor them and give them some dignity.
Yeah.
And so we bring mattering now to them in the form of weekly activities, much like we do in schools, much like we do in corporate, weekly programming that allows them to regain their mattering. And recently, just because we're talking, I feel like we're talking about a lot of death and dying and things. But recently, a woman who was in one of our programs at a community passed away, and they had a celebration of life for her at the community. And her daughter, who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, flew out to LA for the celebration of life. And she said at the celebration that, I want you guys to know that because of this Every Monday Matters program, that my mom absolutely knew how much and why she mattered before she died. And
did you cry? You sobbed. Yes. Because you're about to cry right now. Yeah. I'm about to cry right now. Don't look at me, man. No.
So it's hard because I don't want people to like, oh my God, this guy's so heavy and this stuff's so heavy, right? But it's just real, and it's just like, the pain is real, life is real. We're all trying to figure this stuff out. We all have our stuff. It's part of why I have struggled with social media, to be honest with you, is like, I just want more honesty and authenticity and vulnerability out there in the world. And enough of this, everything's awesome all the time. It's not how it works. And so I'm trying to navigate how I can use a platform like that to bring value. And maybe we'll have some conversations after this that you can help me with.
It would be an honor.
Because clearly I have a message. I don't want to exacerbate things also that I think are actually doing harm in some ways to our humanity itself. Yeah. So how do I find that right, healthy balance?
Right.
There are people that I meet all the time who have platforms, and then there are people that I meet that should have them. And I think, Matt, like you fall into a bucket that it's the same reason why I responded to your message. Listening to you for the last 40 minutes or so, we can understand that I want more people like you in the world that are doing the work that you're doing, because I'm not doing it. I want to. I'm inspired by it, but there needs to be people that are out there leading the charge, and that's why I admire you and you're a friend, for sure.
Thank you for making the introduction. Like, truly, I really do mean it. For those of you who are watching and listening to the Jasmine Star Show, it is an honor and a privilege to speak to Matthew Emerzian and share this message in a way that, first and foremost, he gets comfortable with, and then secondly, a little boot camp during our lunch break. We about to turn it up. But for people who do want to connect with you and with the Every Monday Matters, where do they go? Where are we pointing them to? Well, actually, you have your own personal brand website now. We got to give a shout out.
Yeah.
I should say that one first then.
You should.
So you can go to
You're already getting coached.
MatthewEmerzian.com is my personal website. And for those interested in keynoting, learning more about myself, books, etc. Podcast.
Yeah.
I have a podcast. Marcos on my podcast. Marcos said one of the most profound things ever on that podcast. He said, my whole life, I felt like I've never was white enough or black enough. And it's something I'll never forget that you said on my podcast. Mm-hmm. There's also the Every Monday Matters organization website. On social media, Instagram, @Emerzian or @Mondays Matter.
Look at you. Look at you.
Look, hey, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. But you're getting there.
It's like going to the dentist.
All right.
Matthew, you're going to come back on the show so that Marcus can give you a 10. We'll do some coaching in it.
I'd be honored.
No.
If you're looking for a new host, let me know.
Done. Yeah, absolutely.
Like one show and he's booting him out.
All right, guys, see you later. It's been good. Dude, thank you seriously so much.
You're both amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening and watching the Jasmine Star Show. More than anything, if this has impacted you, please be sure to engage on social, share the episode, and